Hi, and welcome to the I Have Fallen and Need Some Help podcast, where the main mission is to educate, equip, and empower families who are caring for their elderly loved ones. We will discuss resources, how to be our best selves, and ways to define success to create success. I am Erin Thompson, a 20-year veteran in the senior living industry and a 15-year family caregiver, and I cannot wait to add value to your life. I'm so excited to be able to get this podcast episode out for you to listen to. I interviewed Sayge Grubbs, an elder law attorney from Montgomery, Alabama. I met him through this whole digital world, and it's just fascinating to see how networking can grow just by finding people that are connected and making the world a better place for our seniors, for our elderly loved ones. Sayge Grubbs is a University of Alabama Law School graduate and is the founder of Sage Legacy Counsel, an estate planning law firm where he focuses on asset protection and other estate planning needs. His passion for serving his community came from his childhood working in the funeral home his family operated, and later working with his father, attorney Norman Grubbs, while in law school. Through Sage's work at the Sage Legacy Council, he recognized a need for more factual information easily accessible to his clients and others in the state of Alabama, and therefore SeniorsIndex.com was born. SeniorsIndex.com is a network of vetted and caring senior care providers that share the same belief that families and caregivers need factual information available in one place and easily accessible. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Thank you so much, Sayge, for being here today. I appreciate your time, and I'm honored that I am able to speak at your event coming up, and an honor and be a part of your Seniors Index program that you have going on. So I want you to take it away and tell us everything about the event and about Seniors Index as well.
Well, thank you, and thank you for being one of our key speakers. We are here in the River region in Montgomery, and in this area, there is an organization called McCoa. And so this event is going to help donate some funds to their Meals on Wheels program, which takes meals to seniors that are in need. And I mean, they deliver a lot of meals on a weekly basis, like Monday through Friday. So we annually partner with them to do an event, and it kind of slowed down during COVID, but the event is called the Successful Aging Boot Camp, and it's May 19th. It's from 10 to 3 at Vaughn Forest Church. And the whole goal and objective of the Successful Aging Boot Camp is to allow, I would say, not only family caregivers, but that sandwich generation, they can come get answers. So
Mhm.
one of the things that I've noticed just from my law practice, being an elder law attorney, is that people can get what I say lost in the rabbit hole when they get on Google or when they start talking to other family members or friends about their options for their parents or their loved ones, or their spouse when it comes to home care or going into a facility, whether it's even an independent facility or assisted living or any of those types of facilities. It can just get confusing because the laws change from state to state, and things are just different. So what might have worked for your aunt in Michigan or Florida is not going to work in Alabama. And so, at this event, we're going to shed light on what does work here in the state of Alabama. And we're going to shed light on how to actually, or I should say, not we, but you are going to shed light on actually how to have that talk with people and their loved ones about how to actually navigate this aging process. And I'm excited because I think we have a good group of people that are going to be on the expert panel at the end to answer a lot of questions. We have a lady that's going to speak in the beginning named Angela Boyd, and she's going to discuss Medicare and all the different options there. Of course, I will do a talk on asset protection and how to protect your loved ones' assets so they don't go broke in the nursing home. And I think, we're going to raise a lot of money. We're going to have a lot of fun, and it's going to be a great event. I mean, seriously, if you have someone who's already receiving home care, or if you have someone that is in a facility already, to me, this is a not miss type of event. Like, there's nowhere else can you go and get this group of people and these types of experts all in the same room to answer your questions.
Yeah, it sounds pretty powerful. And I get to talk about my grandmother's story and how we would go through every phase of the in-home caregiving to moving into assisted living, even a respite stay, and then also my ability to coach the thousands of family members throughout my career, whether or not they moved in to my community or not, but problem solving their current situation. So, yeah, it's exciting and quite an honor and to be able to learn from the expert panels, and of course asset protection being a lot of what we want to talk about today because there's so many questions that I have about it that I've also seen in my experience as well. And I have a lot of parents in that generation where my parents are divorced and remarried, my husband's parents are divorced and remarried, and I have a lot of parents. And so actually getting the questions about trust and asset protection is important because I want what's best for them. And when you want what's best for your loved one, you can help everybody else, which is really exciting. So I'm excited about that. Again, it's May 19th and it's at
Bond Forest Church in Montgomery, Alabama. And it's sponsored by SeniorsIndex.com. And I created and founded Seniors Index mainly because my clients, I was tired of talking with them and seeing them go down that rabbit hole on Google and other searches that they do, trying to figure out what's what, and who to talk to, who's reliable, who's this and that. So I said, how can I help lessen the stress of my clients, which turned into me saying, how can I help lessen the stress of people that are going through this aging process and have family members that they're trying to help, right? So by lessening the stress, the easiest thing to do is information.
yes.
The correct information, the right information, vetted, curated information that's state specific. I had a person say, well, that website's going to be full of advertorials. And I said, well, if someone is just putting advertorials on there, then they really won't get any business because no one's going to just read something that just says, use me, use me, use me, use me, right?
Mhm.
So we try to make sure that everything on the site has some good information and education that you can use that's state specific here for the state of Alabama, and it's free. So for the public, it's 100% free, to join, to get on there, to become part of the community. There's dashboards on there. So if you just have a question or a topic you'd like to discuss in senior care, you can put it on the dashboard. People will come in and answer you. And, in order to register for the event, you just have to get on seniorsindex.com and click on the button. So seniorsindex.com is helping put this event on because we at Senior Index really believe that it's very important for people to get the right information, to get educated on these topics, and actually hear it from experts, people that are in the industry that are doing this on a daily basis, helping family members solve these problems and these issues, right? So with that being said, you can click on the very top where it says RSVP Bootcamp. So if you go to
Mhm.
seniorsindex.com, you just click on that button, RSVP Bootcamp, and then a page will pop up and it'll say, fill out this form and hit submit. You just fill it out. RSVP, we only have a certain number of spots available. And for everyone that's coming, we're just asking that you donate $15 to hear all this good information. You'll get a swag bag from all the people that are there and all the experts. But we're just asking you to donate $15 to help us go ahead and build some, what I would say, good vibes for McCoa and all the Meals on Wheels that they're serving Monday through Friday every week here in the River region.
It's nice to partner with people who have a heart to serve. I mean, we all are in a business, we have to make money, but really ultimately it's a business to serve people. And this is a great way of doing that with seniorsindex.com, and then also events like this to just educate, empower, and equip family members and residents or elderly people themselves on how to make the best choices for themselves, to really just define success for them at every stage of the caregiving journey, or your life's journey. So that is very inspiring. It's nice to see a lawyer do a good thing. You know what I mean? Way to go, Saj.
Thank
Way
you,
to
thank you,
go.
thank you, thank you. Yes. Hey,
um
we're not all out chasing ambulances.
that's good. That's important. That's important to note. And for me, it's important to be able to focus in on the state of Alabama, which for my entire career I haven't been able to do. So um I've worked for larger companies, and so it's really nice just to be able to speak to people in Alabama and to, equip them with strategies to help them be successful throughout their journey. So that's exciting. Again, May 19th, and you can go to seniorsindex.com to register. So I want to get into the nuts and bolts of Sage Legacy Council and asset protection, because there's a lot of people that ask questions, and of course I can't answer those questions. And like I said, I have parents who are looking at protecting their assets for the future, and I have had people question me, how do I protect my loved ones' assets? And when we're looking at Medicaid and how they look back 5 years and all of the hoops that people have to go through to even get Medicaid, I want you to explain to us how you advise people to do that. Number one, we'll start there. And then what are some of the red flags to look for? And to me, an average cost of what something they can trust can be. So there's our three questions, but we'll start with number one. How do you protect assets? How do you do that?
Well, you got to use the right type of trust. Okay. I tell people all the time there's three types of planning you can do. You can do no planning, which is what majority of Americans have. You can do will planning, which is the most popular, or you can do trust planning. Trust planning is the only planning that can actually help you protect your assets as far as estate planning is concerned. Now, when we say trust planning, there are three different types of trust. So, everything comes in threes, right?
Mhm.
You got three types of plans, three types of trust. You've got a revocable living trust, which helps you skip probate. It allows you to be the owner of the trust. You can be the manager, or what we like to call the trustee of the trust. And you can benefit the trust, which is everybody's favorite position, because the person that benefits is a person that can actually receive the money or the house, home, whatever's in the trust, right? So, in that type of trust, or a local living trust, you get all the benefits but asset protection. So then people came along and they said, well, we want asset protection. And they created a irrevocable trust. That'd be the second type of trust. Now, the irrevocable trust within and of itself allows you to skip probate, allows you to protect your assets, and you own the trust. What we like to say, the problem though, a lot of times, is that you aren't the trustee or the manager of the trust, meaning you cannot do anything with the stuff that's actually in it. Once you put it in there, it's there and it's done. Also, you can't benefit from it. So you can't take anything out and give it to yourself. So for a long time, that was the main way that people did asset protection. I happen to have joined an association where we have kind of a hybrid of those two trusts, which is why I say there's three types of trust. It's an irrevocable trust, and we use it for asset protection planning, but because it's a special type of trust, it allows the person to still be their own manager or trustee, which is huge, because that means if you put your house in there, well, you're still in charge of your house, right? In the other one, the irrevocable one, where you can't be in charge or the trustee, if you put your house in there, Well, you're not in charge of your own house anymore. You know what I mean? Your trustee is. So if they want to sell it or do something, there's nothing you can do about it. Also, in the third type, which is kind of a hybrid, you can actually be a beneficiary. So not only do you get the asset protection from Medicaid or a creditor predator lawsuit, but you get to be in charge and you can actually receive money and things like that out of the trust. And the funny thing about using a trust is something that we call the Medicaid freeze that I don't think people understand or take advantage of. So, for instance, because Medicaid looks back 5 years, let's say you put $100,000 in the trust, right? Well, all Medicaid sees during that 5 year period is $100,000. Now, if that $100,000 is one of these, unicorn cryptos or something, and it doubles within 5 years, and it's now at 200,000, well, they can't see that growth. They can't see that $100,000 growth. Your amount that they can see is frozen at that 100,000 that you originally put in. So that's another reason why trusts are so important when it comes to this type of planning. And when we're doing Medicaid planning or long-term care planning for facilities, whether even if it's assisted living and someone's a veteran and they're trying to get what's called VA
Mm-hmm.
aid and attendance, that
Mm-hmm.
still has a look back. It's got a 3 year
Yes.
look back. So we
Yes.
still use trust planning for that. Same type of trust, same type of deal, different rules than Medicaid, but just as important. And when we're doing that type of planning, you can either do pre-planning or you can do crisis planning. Pre-planning is everybody's healthy, everybody's okay. You know, maybe someone's went to the hospital, but you haven't signed up for a home caregiver to come in, things of that nature. That is all pre-planning. Crisis planning is when you are sitting in the assisted living, or as you know, you're sitting in rehab and they tell you got 21 days and it's day 19. and
Yeah.
they're like, and they're like, hey, you are about to go to the skilled nursing facility. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That is crisis planning. Now, in both types of planning, that's kind of what we focus on. We focus on the pre-planning and the crisis planning. But in both types of planning, you can save a lot of assets. Like our goal is to make sure that that person had a will, that it's followed, and that those people can still receive that stuff through our trust planning, right? And that stuff doesn't get liquidated and eaten up. Now, sometimes the best thing to do is to liquidate some stuff, but if, as I tell people, if I liquidate something and I get $100,000 and I don't have any plan at all, well, until I spend $98,000 of that, I don't qualify for Medicaid, right?
Correct.
Now, this person wanted to give that, let's say, to their two kids. Well, now I've got $100,000 and I wanted to give it to my two kids. I don't have a plan. I've got to spend 98,000 before I can qualify for Medicaid. So my kids aren't going to get anything. If you do pre-planning in that same scenario, you may possibly be able to save the whole 100,000 and qualify for Medicaid. If you do crisis planning in that scenario, you may still be able to save like 60,000 and still qualify for Medicaid. So the timing of when someone plans is key. Yet it's better to plan than to not plan at all.
Yeah. I mean, a trust completely, you negate probate altogether, which is worth having a trust, I would say. For the people
Yes,
on the other side, it's worth having a trust just to not have to go through probate, because there's a lot of things that people don't realize when you have to go through that process that can really hinder you from forward progress on anything that you want to do. Number two, I mean, pre-planning is important, especially if there are assets involved. And if they are a veteran, because yes, aid and attendance is available to people who have spent 90 days in active duty with at least one day being wartime for their healthcare needs. But there is that 3 year look back that 5 years ago was not there.
that's
So
right.
if they earned it, this pre-planning is very important because now they can get the pension that they rightfully earned. Um, and it's just, if you love your people, this is just the most peaceful way to set them
Yeah.
up at a very sad and traumatic time for them, you know? So would you suggest like around 65? I mean, of course, we never know, right? And this is the perfect case scenario would be if you're going to live to 85, right? Which I know it's all based, I guess, on the amount of assets that you have and the different kinds of
Yeah.
things. Like I'm asking a real simple question here that is very complicated. But if you were a person with $100,000, let's just say all you had was $100,000 in liquid cash and maybe a house, right? Nothing fancy, no LLCs, nothing like that. I mean, when you're looking at Medicare and all that other kind of stuff, would you say that that's a perfect time to start the process?
Yeah. That's the exact time to start it because you're healthy and you can save the most and put the best plan in place because you're healthy. One of the ways to pay is long-term care. And people are like, well, I don't want long-term care insurance because it costs too much.
Mm-hmm.
Yet it's better to pay, I tell people, pay $600 a month now than to pay $6,500 a month later. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm just using that as an example. I don't know how much, because it's individually based, a person's long-term care may cost, but people believe it to be very expensive. On the other hand, if you don't have long-term care and you don't have a plan, then the likelihood of you going broke, or even if your spouse goes in the facility, the likelihood of the family going broke is very, very, very high.
Mm-hmm.
So the earlier someone plans, the better. And then also when you plan, it gives you that peace of mind, because if you use a firm like ours, which is, this is all we focus on, you'll be able to say, hey, this just happened. What's my plan when this
Mm-hmm.
happens? You
Yeah.
know, hey, this person just went here in this type of facility. What's my plan when this person goes in this type of facility? So, it's always better to have a roadmap and a
Yes.
plan to get to your destination than it is to just show up and file paperwork saying, hey, Medicaid, here
Mm-hmm.
I am. Do with me
Yes.
what you please.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. And most people want to protect their assets from Medicaid. And I know that I feel like that just feels like I shouldn't say that out loud, but it is true. Like they want to be able to protect it. And so you specifically have avenues to make that happen that maybe other people in your field do not have, which is very special because and you can go to other states. You can
Yes.
work with other lawyers within different states. I mean, that to me is when you're looking at points of differences and what you really want, if you can define success, I want to make sure that I get Medicaid, I get my rights, and I also protect my assets in a very safe and legal way. Not every lawyer is set up to do that. Is that what you were saying, if
And
I understand it correctly?
yes, and I just want to add to that. And this is a story that I love to tell because this is one of my I have a lot of favorite clients, but this is one of my favorite clients because this was the first time I did this. The guy was in California. His parents were here in Alabama, and he has done, I would say, Zoom calls with me to explain this program that I started because of him. And so, he'll be the first to ring the bell. I'm still
Mhm.
not going to say his name, but he'll be the first to ring the bell. But the thing is, when he came home, because people can decline so rapidly, when he came home to visit his parents, one parent was in the assisted living and the other one was going in and out of the hospital. So he was worried about his mom, not his mom, his dad that was in the assisted living. Less worried about his mom because at least she was going in the hospital, but then she'd come home.
Mhm.
So he came home for a couple of weeks. And when I say home, he just came back to visit his parents to help get their affairs in order. And he thought everything was fine. He goes back to California, receives a phone call that suddenly dad's in the nursing home. And now mom's going into an assisted living. And, his head and his mind space at that point was like, wait a minute, I was just there like
Mhm.
2, 3 weeks ago. And the only option, that the nursing home was giving him to get on Medicaid was to sign over, in his words, sign over the house to Medicaid. In
Yep.
other words, let
Yep.
Medicaid put a Medicaid lien on it. Parents didn't have much else, but he knew they'd paid that house off and it was worth about $110,000, $120,000. So that just did not sit right with him. Okay. He talked to some attorneys, and a lot of times when you're talking about doing Medicaid planning, uh, we use what's called the regional divisor, and we say that's going to be the minimum amount it's going to cost to do a Medicaid case at a law firm, right? And depending on what all you're trying to do, we multiply that regional divisor by two, by one. I mean, not by one, by two or two and a half, right? So an attorney was like that he talked to was like, well, your parents don't have the money to do the spin down, so the lien just has to go on the house. Another attorney he talked to, same thing. Are you? They asked him, "Are you going to pay for it?"
Mhm.
And he's like, "Well, why should I have to pay for it?" He was like, "We're trying to get our parents on. It's my understanding that they have to pay for it." And so basically, he's hitting his head on the wall. A realtor who I'd done some stuff for got him to me. And I said, it's a shame that they have this house and they paid it off and the family's going to lose this house. So I started a program that I call the Medicaid Quick Sale Program. And so what we did, he was out in California, I was here in Alabama, but thankfully, due to the type of law I practice, I've dealt with a lot of asset protection for real estate investors. So I put that house on a list as soon as his dad went into the nursing home. You know, he had to be in there for 30 days before we could actually apply him, right? And so we got that house sold within the 30 days. We were
Wow.
able to actually get the family a inheritance and for it to go exactly the way the mom and dad had left it in their will. And we also paid for prepaid. We did two funeral trusts. So we prepaid for two funerals with funeral trusts. And when we did the math, it was amazing that when we signed everything, got everything done, his mom passed away the day after she signed everything.
Wow.
And we were like, it was almost as if she was holding on to make sure that her house was going to go to her children, because
Yeah.
she had to sign the deed. She had to sign the deed and everything
Yeah. That's
for the
amazing.
closing. And the closing attorney was like calling me frantic, and she was like, "Hey, what time did the lady pass away? Because we got to make sure that this closing's legit." And I was like, "Yeah, it's legit. Like she passed away, about 36 hours after she signed the documents because they had to mail the documents and everything."
Mhm.
And I was sitting there and we were doing the math. I was doing the math with him, and he said, "Saj, when we do the math, the house sold for about 80 grand." He said, "We were able to put about 40 grand in our pocket. Plus, we paid for two funerals. So that was 8 grand and 8 grand. Plus, he was able to get reimbursed for stuff. I was able to work it out for him to get reimbursed for like the washer and dryer and all the stuff he bought for his parents when he came down the first time. So he put all that money back in his pocket or in the family's pocket so they could split it up. And he wasn't out of pocket for coming, going, any of that.
Mhm.
And he said, we still paid the nursing home about 3 months or 4 months before they qualified, but they had basically used like 70% of the assets the way that he said his mom and dad would have wanted it done.
Mhm.
Even though they didn't have the house, they still got the inheritance from it.
Mhm.
Which, if you look at what would have happened if we hadn't done the Medicaid quick sale program, house would have went to Medicaid. Mom would have passed away. They'd have been $8,000 out of pocket for the funeral. So, and he said, and then when dad passes, that'd be another 8 grand. Plus, he would have been out of pocket for the stuff he bought for the house and everything. So he was like, we went from 70% positive uh, when it was supposed to be like a 20 plus grand negative, you know?
That's
And it was
amazing.
just sad to me that a lot of attorneys look at Medicaid planning that way, to where when someone like that walks in and they're like, we just really have a house, they just go, well, you don't have any money to protect, you know. But yeah, so I'm proud of that program that we like to do,
Mhm.
and it's easy for the people because we get paid at the closing, so our legal fees are paid at the closing. So it's like I'm putting myself out there and taking a risk by saying, hey, I'm not a realtor, but I know plenty of them, and I know plenty of investors, and we're going to help you get this household before we have to actually put it on a Medicaid application and get Medicaid's permission.
Yeah, I mean, that's an amazing story. You can take so much from that story. A, pre-planning would have saved a lot of anxiety, period.
Yes.
Um, B, you can never ever depend on one parent to be healthy if the other parent is sick, because that doesn't always stay that way.
Right.
And C, you have to find the right person to help you, because there's a lot of people that just judge a book by its cover. And when you find somebody is willing to get in the trenches with you, that's valuable. And then you have a story to tell that will get you more people because you do care. I mean, that is a story that's a point of difference that I will say, if you want somebody in the trenches with you, then Saj from Sage Legacy Council is that person, because that is an amazing story. That's why we do what we do.
Oh
It's not
yeah,
about the
yeah,
money. You have to get
yeah,
paid, right? Sure.
yeah. We have to get paid. Yeah,
But
Look, I'm a girl dad, so I got 4 weeks to
yeah,
pay for it at some point.
y'all, he's got 4 girls. That's great. That's great. That's great. But you want to give your money to somebody who's willing to invest in you. Like, I want to
Yes.
give my money to somebody who wants to do the right thing for me. And just because it's the right thing and because you're passionate about it. Like, that
Yeah.
is so
I was
critical.
gonna. Yeah, I was gonna say it's funny you say that because we do a lot of educational events, or at
Mhm.
least I'm asked to come and speak at different educational events, and sometimes we'll talk about a trust, and people will come in. And my wife's a financial advisor, and so sometimes they'll come in, they'll be meeting with her because maybe she spoke, and then all of a sudden they're in my office, and then they get mad at me because I say, okay, for what you're trying to accomplish and for what you're trying to do, you don't need a trust. And as as if she's my manager or my boss, like it's almost like they're like, well, let me talk to your supervisor. You know what I mean? So it's like, where's your supervisor? They'll go back to her office and be like, tell your husband to sell me this trust. You know what I mean? And she'll say, well, he's not going to sell you anything. He's going to, help you get the best plan that you want and that you need. And I'm not, and that's that. I mean, and that's the bottom line. I'm not going to say, hey, you need a trust if you don't need a trust. It just is what
Yeah.
it is.
But the reason to get a trust is to avoid probate at all costs. And for the most part,
Yes.
that's worth it. If you have the money, that is worth it. And you want to provide a peaceful experience for your loved ones, a trust for just that reason is worth it. Um, but if you want to protect more protection, you will have to go to a specific lawyer like Saj from Sage Legacy Council, or find somebody that can do that particular type of trust that he's referring to. So we
Yes,
had
it's
talked.
an asset
Go ahead.
protection trust. Yeah,
Yes,
I would say
asset
not to cut
protection
you off.
trust.
It's an
Yeah.
asset protection trust, and you got to remember, all asset protection trusts are not created equal.
Mhm.
You would look what the type of trust you want to look for is a asset protection trust that allows you to actually be the trustee, meaning that you don't
Mhm.
have to pay your CPA or the attorney that drafted it, or your cousin or someone else to actually be the trustee. That's if you are just looking for what I would call asset protection that's going to protect your stuff from Medicaid, lawsuits, things of that nature. Now, there are other asset protection trusts that are a lot more cumbersome and a lot more advanced. But for, I would say, as we like to say, the 99%, a regular asset protection trust that allows you to be the trustee, which is a special type of asset protection trust, but it will work wonders. I've got clients that have those that are surgeons. I've got clients that have those that are farmers, retired athletes. So, it works across the board. From the little old lady that just wants to protect her one house and her $10,000 to the guy that's got a Rolls Royce in the driveway. So
Yeah. Yeah. So it's important if somebody says that you can't do that, you have to know that you can. You just have to
yes,
find the right person.
yes.
And so just to end the podcast in a way, you and I were speaking earlier about some red flags. And I think it's important because there are a lot of scammers out there, and specifically who want to target asset planning and also just seniors in general. So the lowest, let's just say you're going to a lawyer who specializes in asset protection like this. What would be the range that you can feel comfortable, that I could feel comfortable in knowing that my end result is what I want it to be? Whether or not it's the special kind of trust that we're talking about, or if it's just the revocable trust or the irrevocable trust, is the range like 1,500, or if you buy something for $299, that is something that we should be thinking about?
Yeah. So there's a difference between just having a document and actually having a plan, right?
Mhm.
So if you just have a document, it may not fit into anything else you have going on. And sadly, probably the person that sold it to you hasn't truly explained to you how to use it, how to actually do what we call funding when we're talking about a trust, which that's the process of actually putting stuff in the trust so that the trust owns it, right? Because if you don't fund and there's
Mhm.
nothing in it, then it's basically like a pen with no ink.
Yes.
So you got to put the ink in the pen. Now, what I would say, anywhere from if you're just talking about a standalone trust or a complete plan, you can get a simple standalone trust, easily for probably, I would say, around $2,000. But that's not an asset protection trust.
Mhm.
A full plan, estate plan that I would trust would probably start around $3,500. Okay. Now, when we talk asset protection, of course, the amount goes up because of the benefits, because you can get asset protection at both levels. So, for instance, in an asset protection trust, you can pass stuff down to your kids. And if they get divorced or something happens to them, they get asset protection at that level. Their inheritance is theirs. They don't have to split it with their ex-spouse or what have you.
Mhm.
So, when you're looking at those types of plans, I would say they're going to range anywhere from about 4,500 all the way up to about 15,000, just depending
Mhm.
on how many types of trusts and entities you're trying to protect and things that you're trying to do. As far as Medicaid planning is concerned, we use the regional divisor. A lot of people do it that way. And if you look at your state, your Medicaid, here in Alabama, the regional divisor goes up just a little bit every year. So I like to say I get a raise on my Medicaid planning every year. That's going to start out at around $6,800.
Mhm.
And, if you have a very complex, lot of stuff type of Medicaid case, you may be looking at you know, multiplying that by two, which you'd be looking around 14, 15,000 for Medicaid. But I would say the sweet spot's probably around 10. So you're looking at
Mhm.
about 10,000. Now,
Yeah.
people go, oh, wow, $10,000. And I say, oh, wow, you just saved 60 to 75% of your stuff, you
Yes.
know?
Yes.
So it's
Yes.
like there's got to be some willingness to understand that when you're saving, when you're saving those kind of assets for that kind of price, it's like my guy said, he went up 70%, save 70% versus being in the hole, $28,000 in the hole. So,
Yeah.
that's, to me, that's worth a little $10,000 bump to the attorney for Medicaid plan.
Yeah, I mean, big picture versus small picture. You know what I mean? Like what's important to you is eventually going to cost money,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah,
that's just the piece of it. And sometimes what you want the most and how to set your family up for success, if that's important to you, is going to cost money to do that. And
yeah. And
we
I would
have a
say
right to Medicaid.
that's one of the red flags. We call them attorneys that do what I do. We call it a trust meal. You'll see them advertised sometimes. They notoriously prey on churches, and they
Hmm.
come in and they offer these cut rate prices, these special prices. They come, they spend a day, they get a whole bunch of trust done, but nothing is truly customized. Like they don't take the time to actually learn about your family dynamics and your family finances and what's important and things of that nature. This it's merely like, hey, we're coming in and we're going to do 100 estate plans this weekend. To me, that's a red flag.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yes.
you know, that that's a lot of people. There's no way for them to customize your stuff when they're doing that many estate plans in that
No.
weekend.
And if they don't
Um,
get to know any details, then there is no details that they're protecting. There is no protection.
yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah. And
so
that's, and I tell people all the time, that's why I laugh when I hear that AI or Chat GPT or some of this other stuff is just going to replace everybody. Because I said, well, the computer has never been a human, so they can't sit like the people in my office sit and I sit and have conversations with family members and figure out, oh, I just touched a button. That's important. Or, oh, you know, they would rather lose this than that. And the reason may not make sense to me, but it makes a lot of sense to them.
yeah.
So there's a lot of emotions tied to this whole aging process because everyone wants to make sure that their loved ones are taken care of in the best manner, and the loved ones want to make sure that they're not being a headache, and that they're still looking out for that next generation.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm glad you do the work that you do. And I hope to learn a whole lot more from you. But I'm looking forward to seeing you at the Successful Aging Boot Camp. And I'm very proud of the work that you've done with SeniorsIndex.com and to be able to be a part of that. So it's nice to know fellow passionate people who want to do good in the world. That's nice. So
And the
thank you
thing,
for your time.
I was about to say, the thing, this all started from LinkedIn when I sent you a message and I was like, hey, you know a lot.
Yes.
I was
Yes. Yes. And I'm
like,
still learning so much about this and all of that. So, yes, I mean, it's just so nice to, it's amazing how this digital world is so helpful to unite people with similar interest. It's pretty inspiring. So,
yeah, yeah.
I'm happy
Well,
to be a
thanks for
part of
having
it.
me.
Yes. Thank you. And I'll see you soon. Okay?
All right. May 19th.
I'm so very proud of that interview. I learned a lot. I hope you did too. Here are my 5 takeaways from this interview. Estate planning or any type of planning is better to start when it is not needed than when it is. Because when that time comes and those plans are needed, it's already laid out for you and there's no stress. Number two, you can protect your assets and still be eligible for Medicaid benefits. Not a lot of people say that. A lot of people think, and I was one of those that thought that Medicaid would come back and take their portion. And that is true. Not all trusts are created equal. Number three, not all lawyers can do this type of trust. Ask specifically for the asset protection trust that has the ability to keep you as the trustee. Number four, not all lawyers or people claiming to be able to write trusts for you can actually do that. So be very aware and cautious of people who claim that they can create a trust for you and then charge you less than $1,000. A good trust irrevocable trust, a simple trust is going to cost you at least $1,500 to $2,000. Just a red flag for you to think about. Number 5, if you live in the state of Alabama, look up seniorsindex.com. Give it a shot. It may be able to lead you in the right direction.